Hey, welcome to Hack and Build. Today I'm going to show you how to paint like a pro. Now, one thing when I'm watching YouTube or some other DIY thing, I always see people get out that roll of painter's tape. And that's probably the worst way to mask off things in your house, like if you're painting trim or, for example, this door behind me here. So I'm going to show you a trick that I picked up from a painter on how to quickly prevent paint from getting onto two surfaces. So if you're painting, molding, trim, etc. And this is especially good if, like, say you have wallpaper. What are you going to do? You're going to tape the wallpaper? No, you can't tape the wallpaper. So let me show you how I do it and what the results are. We'll take a look down at my tools below. So here are my tools that I'm using to paint the door. I've got a 2-inch angled brush. And I like these angled brushes because they allow you to kind of cut in different ways. And, you know, don't spend $1 or $2 on a brush. Get a decent brush. And this one isn't super expensive. I think this is like a $10 brush. I believe it's nylon. But I really like this brush. It gives me a nice clean finish. It's a Zebra brand brush. I use this with oil paints, latex. It seems to work well with everything. Now the trick that I wanted to tell you about, besides the brush, and for this door I'm just using 2 brushes, and having this small brush here is very helpful for painting those lights and getting into the the finer details, so you're not making a mess all over the place. There's a limitation on this one. See, because you can paint like this. You can paint like this. You can get a clean line that way, but the profile on this side is thicker than the wood on the door, and so that's why I'm using that smaller brush. So here's a quick example of how I try to paint straight without using any masking. And what I'm going to do is just come down here and I'm going to apply some pressure to the brush. I've loaded it up with a little bit of paint, but not too much. And I'm just going to go nice and slow, and I can see where the white paint on the front of the door is, and so I'm just going to put my line in, and I'm going to just press that down nice and firm, and I'm just going to do a pass up there, and then I'm going to do another pass, and I'm going to keep going up until it's about where I want it, and just go slowly, nice and controlled, and eventually you'll end up to where you want it. And for this part of the door, I'm happy with that. This is, the side of the door, and it's mostly going to be closed or all the way open, so it's not something that someone's going to be looking at. Let me see if I can get some better light on that. Let's zoom in a bit here. Okay, let's do it. So I would probably go over this a couple of times. It's more difficult trying to hold the camera, but to me, that's pretty good. I'm still in the process of painting this, and it might need one more coat after this. But had I used tape, I wouldn't have been able to get any better results than that, and I'd be picking tape off and I'd be pulling tape up. So this is a lot more, maybe it goes a little bit slower because you have to be, until you get more experienced with your painting, it's going to go a little bit slower, but the trade-off is that you don't have to put the tape there. So for me, it's a net time savings, and I really hate taping. But the real trick to getting a nice clean line is to have some drywall knives and putty knives that you can use to mask off on the fly as you go along. And when you have a professional painter, they're not taping stuff off. They're using they do make specialized tools that are longer edges. These work well for me. This one is especially good for getting into the corners because it's tapered a little bit. So when you put that in there, it makes a nice, it'll allow you to get kind of both sides of it. So I'll show you, I'll bring you up and show you how that looks. So, for example, how I would do this is you pop this down in there, and that would allow me to get in there on the side. Actually, it's more like that, and I put a little bit of pressure on it so that the paint doesn't leak out the edges. And you don't want to paint, like you're drunk. Paint a nice, paint as neat as you can, and then you can get the corner over here, and then you take your other putty knife, and then you go along with that. And I've been painting this over a couple of weeks, so it's kind of dusty, needs a second coat. I really hate painting, and that's why when I paint, I want it to go as quickly as possible and just get it done. So yeah, having the various sizes of putty knife here, this pretty much has me covered for the door. This railing here is another example where you can just use a brush and you don't need a knife. Now I'll show you an example where you could use the knife, which is down here on this column here. And so you put your knife here and you paint, and then you do the same thing for the top. It's a little harder here because it's difficult to get something in there to block it off, so you just paint that carefully. And yeah, okay, this needs another coat of paint, but as you can see, there's not a lot of paint, all over the place here. And having a good brush too, you oftentimes don't need the knife. So like if I'm just cutting in two walls, I've got two different colors, I'm probably not going to use the knives. I will use the knives especially when painting trim or the walls uneven, and it's really more you're trying to paint a straight line, and this just prevents the paint from getting on that other surface. So don't one key thing is don't put too much paint on, because if you do, then you're going to have runs and drips coming out the side, and it's just not going to be very good. But since I found out about this trick, I've been using it exclusively. I don't use tape anymore. It's a waste of time. You pull off the tape, it pulls the paint off the wall. It takes a long time to set up, and this, all you need is your putty knives, which you may already have, and then just put a cloth in your back pocket, and if you happen to get some paint on your blade here, you can just wipe it off, and you're good to go. Keep on painting. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more hacks and builds, and we'll see you in the next time. Thanks for watching. Cheers.